Hello friends, it's Vicky. I'm here to do another vlog for you. And this time around I wanted to do sort of the books that I'm reading are centered around a specific theme, which I don't feel like I do very much. But I read a book back in April that really just kind of got me on this theme or topic. And I want to read a bunch of books about it now. And basically, this vlog, I'm going to be reading books about ballet. I read Tiny Pretty Things back in April and I really enjoyed it, and I think the reason is because I was a dancer growing up, and so of course I'm going to really, in many areas, I'm going to identify with books about dance in general. And there's a lot of books out there about ballet that I want to read. So in this vlog, I have 5 that I've chosen that I think are really going to be enjoyable for different reasons. 3 of them are fiction, 2 are nonfiction. And I don't know, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be very nostalgic for me because, like I said, I was a dancer. Although at the time when I danced as a kid, teen, whatever, I didn't really appreciate ballet like I do now. At the time, I took ballet because I had to in order to dance competitively at my studio. It was a requirement. And so for me, it was like a means to an end. And though I think at the time I did notice my technique improved when I started to take ballet more seriously the last couple of years that I danced. I think I did start to kind of see the value of ballet, though I didn't totally enjoy it. And now I actually do really enjoy it. I think it's just a beautiful art form. It takes so much strength to be graceful and strong, and also to be theatrical and performative in that way, to tell a story with your body. It's just an amazing art form. Dance in general is just amazing. But ballet specifically, I think, has just a certain like kind of special quality. I also recognize that ballet also has its like fair share of problems within the industry, and also just sort of, you always hear stories about like dancers and eating disorders, or having like issues with needing to be perfect and like being burnt out and like all that kind of stuff. So I know that it does have its kind of negative side, but I don't know. So I think the books I chose are also going to sort of be a mix of that. Some of them are going to have like kind of to cover that sort of darker topic, that darker side of the art form, and then others are going to celebrate it, I think. So the 5 books I chose, a couple of them I did get from the library. The first one too, actually, I am going to be doing this one first. I'm going to get it on audio. And it's called The Turning Point by Vanessa L. Torres. And this one is about a ballerina who, her dad is also her like ballet teacher. And she comes from like a dance family. So her dad obviously is a ballet dancer. Her mother danced, and so did her sister. And so it's like ingrained in her family and in her to be a dancer. But for her, ballet isn't really her passion. She's more into sort of like the jazz funk sort of style of dance, like what you would see in music videos and stuff. But her family is like, no, you are doing ballet. And what's cool about this story is it takes place in the 80s in Minneapolis. And it's about how the studio where she goes and takes classes, at the time, Prince, yes, the amazing, awesome artist Prince, is there because he's getting ready to film Purple Rain. And so he's doing some work and stuff, and so she's just like totally freaking out because she's a huge Prince fan. And so it kind of, I think, is going to incorporate like the 80s pop, 80s, you know, like the whole 80s vibe, because Prince, it was so 80s, you know what I mean? Like, and he was such an icon that I love that it's like bringing those two things together, like Prince, ballet, 80s. I'm like, yes, please. I really want to read this. I think this is going to be one that is about a person that loves dance, but maybe not the type of dance she's supposed to love. And she's going to kind of find her way. I don't know. I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited about this one. And then, not to be confused, that one's called The Turning Point. The next one I'm reading is called Turning Point. I know it's confusing, but this one is a nonfiction book, and it's by Chloe Angyal. I'm probably saying that wrong. And this one, like I said, is nonfiction, and it's about basically kind of how within the dance industry, the ballet industry specifically, there is definitely a specific type of person that is often looked for in ballet. If you watch a ballet, you can't help but notice that most of the women, well, first of all, it's mostly women, and they are mostly white, and have a specific body type and that sort of stuff. And this book is kind of about how now, within these days and times, that people within the industry are trying to change that and make it more diverse and make it more body positive and make it more overall diversifying ballet, and kind of like, I'm assuming it's going to touch on historically like how that came to be and why, and what they're kind of doing to change it. So this should be really good. I'm excited about it. And then the other nonfiction that I chose is a memoir speaking about diversity in ballet. I picked up Misty Copeland's memoir, Life in Motion, An Unlikely Ballerina. Misty Copeland is an amazing ballerina. Obviously, she is a Black woman, which you don't see very often in your ballet companies. And what's amazing about her, and why I cannot wait to read this book, and why I love Misty Copeland so much, is that she didn't start taking ballet lessons until she was 13, which is very late by most standards to be starting to take ballet and to end up being a professional ballerina. So I can't wait to read her story. I just find her so amazing. And yeah, I'm just really excited about it. And then the other two are just kind of like general sort of ballet books that I want to pick up. The first one, honestly, I don't even know what this is about. I don't know when it takes place. I have no idea what the plot is. This was totally one that I picked up at the library because of the cover and the title. It's called The Ballerinas. And it just is a cover with ballet dancers on it. I know nothing, so we'll find out together, because I have no idea what it's about. So there's that one. And then the last one is Astonish Me, by Maggie Shipstead. And this is about a woman who was a ballerina, but basically like stopped her career and basically started fresh, and now is middle-aged, I'm assuming, and she has a son who, it turns out, is a ballet prodigy. So she is kind of brought back into the ballet world as a mom, and all that. So I don't know. I've heard good things about this one, and I thought it would be kind of a different sort of ballet story because it's about a former ballerina, not necessarily someone who is actively a dancer or pursuing a career or whatever. So yeah, I think this one will be really fun. So this is my stack. And I think like maybe along the way, I will, I don't know, try to share with you guys some of my old, maybe some pictures or video clips or something, if I can bust out the old VCR, because that's how old I am, that all my dance recitals are on VCR tapes. I don't know, I think this is gonna be kind of fun to do. So like I said, I am gonna be starting the Turning Point first. And I'm gonna listen to it on audio. We're actually going out of town. We're leaving today just for the weekend to just kind of get away. We rented an Airbnb, and so we're gonna just go have a relaxing weekend. And so I'm gonna listen to this in the car because I can't read in the car. I get car sick if I try to read in the car. So I'm gonna hopefully if I'm not driving, I'll pop in my earbuds and listen to this a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited to do this. I think it'll be fun. And I'm glad you guys are coming along with me. So yeah, when I actually dive into this, I will do a check-in with you guys. Hey, so I finished my first ballet book for this vlog. I just finished The Turning Point. Ooh, there's a lot of glare there, sorry. The Turning Point by Vanessa L. Torres. And I really liked this one. It's geared towards a like a YA audience. And our main character, Rosa, is just super relatable and like funny, and I just really liked her as a character. She just seemed so real, you know, because she has a couple of like embarrassing moments throughout the story, and yeah, she just seems like a really cool character. And I gave this one 3 stars. My favorite part about this was Rosa as a character. I just liked her like as a narrator and everything like that. I really liked in this one how Rosa is kind of in that point in life where she is starting to think about like future plans, and she's been doing ballet her whole life because both of her parents were ballet dancers. Her dad, Gino, is actually her teacher, and her sister also, her sister Glow, was also a dancer. And so dance is just like ingrained in her, and she does love dancing, but she's not really in love with ballet. And so it was interesting to kind of read a perspective like that, because usually I feel like ballet books are about people that are just like completely obsessed with ballet dancing and being successful, you know, for example, like making a company or, you know, whatever. And it was nice that Rosa had a passion for dance, but just not that type of dance. And so that was kind of her struggle throughout the book, is that she wants to dance, but she doesn't want to do ballet. And so I really liked kind of, it just was sort of different, and I liked it. I really loved the 80s setting, the Minneapolis setting. You really get a sense of the city and the people and just sort of like the culture of that time period and that city. And of course the Prince vibes in here were super great. He doesn't come in to play a lot in the plot, but he was, you know, he was there. It did have a little bit more family drama than I was expecting going into it, but that was also good. And I think that a big part of my enjoyment of this too was it was a coming of age type of story, because like I said, she's trying to kind of figure out her place. And also just like, there's a lot of stuff going on with her family that she deals with in the book. So yeah, this was fun. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. Listened to the audiobook, and I didn't write down who the narrator was, but she was really good. So yeah, book 1 is down. And I actually started physically reading Astonish Me by Maggie Shipstead. I'm about halfway through this, and I am loving it. Loving it. And it's interesting to be reading this one while I was also listening to The Turning Point, because The Turning Point, like I said, focuses on Rosa and kind of her almost kind of like starting or potentially starting a dance career. In this one, our main character, Joan, is leaving her career because she's pregnant. And it's just interesting because they're both in different kind of places within their careers, and sort of, so you're getting a different perspective of what that's like. And this one, I am just loving it because the writing is so good in this. I just love it so much. Pretty much from the first chapter, I was like, yes, I'm vibing with this. This one is definitely, it's not as like fun and everything as The Turning Point was, but this one is a lot about, instead of kind of like, in this one, it's kind of about seeking out your dreams and kind of figuring out what your real passion is. And this one is kind of about abandoning those dreams because reality kind of sets in. And so yeah, it just, this one, like I said, it's about a ballerina who discovers that she's pregnant and decides to quit dancing to, you know, have her child and blah, blah, blah. But she, even though she stands by that decision, she still obviously misses being a dancer. And yeah, that's all as far as I am in the book. But there was a passage that I marked because I just loved it for some reason. It just resonated. And she's talking about the part I'm going to read you. She's talking about her lover, Arslan, who is a very good dancer. He is like world renowned. There you go. That's a better word. He's very talented. and he knows it. And whereas Joan is, you know, she's in the corps. She's not a soloist. She's never featured. And that's kind of how she's always, her career would always have been, even if she'd stayed dancing. But when she sees Arslan dance for the first time, it rocks her world. And so I wanted to just read the passage because, like, again, I just had to share because the writing is so good. So she says, his movements are quick but unhurried, impossible in their clarity and difficulty, and extraordinary in how they seem to burst from nowhere, without any apparent effort or preparation. But the beauty of Arslan's dancing is not what moves Joan to cry in her red velvetary. It is a dream of perfection blowing through the theater. She's been dancing since before her 5th birthday, and she realizes that the beauty radiating from him is what she has been chasing all along, what she has been trying to wring out of her own inadequate body. Forgetting herself, she leans out over the railing, wanting to get closer. Étonnez moi, I know I'm totally saying that wrong. I don't know French, sorry. French phrase. Diaghilev had said to his dancers in the Ballet Russe, "Astonish me." So again, also title spotting. So yeah, I am loving this book. It's really good. And there's parts of it like with Joan that I also just sort of relate to because obviously I don't dance anymore. I haven't danced in a really long time, but I still often find myself when I'm like cooking dinner or whatever, doing pliés or like random tap steps that I learned when I was like 12. You know, just little things like that that are still in your brain and you still just like, those movements still just feel natural. Because Joan has some moments like that too, in the book, where even though she's left the game, she still finds herself doing those sorts of things. So I relate to her in that way. Yeah, so totally loving this, and I'm, like I said, about halfway through it. So yeah, once I have more to say about it, I will give you an update. Hello, so I finished Astonish Me, and I really loved this book. In fact, it was almost like a 5-star up until the last maybe quarter. Definitely the ending, the last couple chapters were not as great. But what made this like almost a 5-star read, and one that I'm gonna give 4 stars to instead, I really feel that Maggie Shipstead just knows the way that she wrote about what it was like to be a ballet dancer, in the sense of how really brutal it is to your body. But when you're watching a ballet, they make it look so effortless and so easy. But really, it's a very, very difficult, painful sort of thing. And I feel like she just captured that very well. And I did read in her acknowledgments, she did take ballet lessons and stuff when she was younger. So she has a sense of that. I really just loved how she talked about what it's like to perform in a ballet. And especially in this story, what it's like to leave that behind inevitably. Because when you really think about it, a ballet dancer's career is pretty short compared to other careers. And what happens when, because it is so hard on your body, like what it's like when you just physically cannot do it anymore. Because you see a couple of characters kind of experience that in this book, and what that's like. I think that she just captured that very well, what it's like to be someone who, you know, used to be able to do all these amazing things physically with your body, and then just not being able to do it anymore and having to kind of come to terms with that. So yeah, even though I was never even close to becoming a professional dancer, like at all, there are definitely things that I could do 20 years ago that I cannot do anymore. And if I try to do, I would hurt myself. So I definitely identified with that part of the story, and also just the part about being a dancer and then having a child who then dances, what it's like to kind of be a dance mom. I obviously identified with, Leia has been dancing. This is her 4th year dancing, and it's just a different experience, you know, and kind of passing on your passion for the art and seeing your child learn the same things you learned, because, you know, it's all the same. It's universal. It's been the same for hundreds of years, ballet. And so it's just interesting to be in that role. And I think that this book also captured that like super well. The only thing about this was I felt like the ending was messy. There's no other word to really describe it. It was just messy. I wish that it had stopped a couple chapters short. I think that would have been fine. But it did keep going, and just the way, the direction it took, the events that occurred, I wasn't super down with. So, but otherwise I think if you are out there and you were a dancer, you would appreciate this a lot. But I think as a story, it did like take a turn I didn't like, and it definitely doesn't have characters in it that you are necessarily gonna love. You probably won't like a lot of them, most of them, but that's what makes it so interesting, is that you have these people that as their job is part of their art, they are, you know, when you're watching them on stage, they are perfect. They are elegant. They are, you know, just like distinguished in a way that you feel like they are above a normal human being, right? They have this very ethereal quality, but in reality, like, they're real people. Their lives get messy. There's drama, all of that. And that book, or this book, is kind of what it's about. So yeah, this was great. 4 stars for sure. I just wish the ending had been different. So yeah, so I'm going to now turn to a nonfiction book from the pile. Not to be confused with The Turning Point, which I read already. Now I'm reading Turning Point. And this one sounds really interesting. About just the kind of dance world, and how it has evolved, and how in ways it also needs to change in terms of being more diverse and being more inclusive, and that sort of thing. And so yeah, I am looking forward to reading this one. Yeah, so far this vlog is going pretty good. I would say I'm reading some good stuff. It's making me very nostalgic, especially this month Leia is actually having her dance recital for this dance season. And so I definitely have dance on the brain anyway. And so being able to sort of take in some books about dance also is just really hitting the spot for me. So yeah, so I'm going to hopefully start this soon, and then I'll do a check-in. Please ignore my hair. I don't know what's happening today. It's just like crazy hair day around here, but I wanted to do a little chat about Turning Point. I'm on the 3rd chapter, and it's already touched on like a lot of things that are problematic in ballet, or just things that are like known about ballet. And it's weird because having been someone who has taken dance classes and was for a time someone who was, you know, dance was like my main extracurricular or whatever, to have things pointed out that I'm like, oh, I guess that's true. It's just really weird. I marked a couple of things because she's talked about, obviously, like the sort of gender binary in ballet, how it's like the girls, there are girls and there are boys, and the girls have a certain look and body type and everything, and the boys don't necessarily have a certain body type, but you know, they get like special treatment because they are so rare in the ballet world. So she's talked about that, and just some of that stuff. So like, for example, one of the things that she says in here is, it's then that adolescent girls in ballet are taught to do 3 things: to physically submit, to disregard their feelings, and most injuriously, to be silent about the first 2. And I was like, that's kind of true. because when you're in a ballet class, it is very strict, especially compared to other dance forms, where like if you're in a jazz class or a contemporary class, they just tend to be more, you tend to be more emotive, I think. There's just more freedom of movement, of expression. And when you're in ballet, it's a very strict sort of style. And there's not a lot of room to play with the movement because it is there is such a specific placement and a specific line you're supposed to have and with your body and things like that. And so when you're in a ballet class, yeah, you are kind of taught to just be silent and to just listen to your instructor and not really ask a lot of questions or whatever. It's just like you take a critique and you apply it, you try to fix it, but there's not a lot. Like I said, it's you are sort of taught to be silent, and I just never thought about it like that. I always kind of thought about it as like I always thought of it as kind of a positive thing to learn, because you are learning to, you know, when you're in a situation where there's an authoritative figure, to like, for example, I always equate it to like a job, like a boss. When you're a kid, your dance teacher's kind of like your boss, and like you are given a critique, and instead of, you know, talking back or arguing, you're just like, yep, I'll fix it. And I always thought that was a good thing, but now I'm like, is it a good thing? I don't know. And of course, like I said, going into the sort of gender binary also, she talks about the pas de deux, which is basically a dance where there's a girl and a boy dancing together, which you see in like pretty much all the classical ballets. There's always like a grand pas de deux somewhere in there. And so she talks about that, and in here she says, some dance theorists maintain that the pas de deux is a prime example of ballet relegating a woman to utter passivity while a man performs his chivalrous duty, carrying her around the stage and displaying her body to the audience. And I'm like, I never thought of it like that, but now I am. So it's just really strange. And then the chapter I'm reading right now is all about the physical pain that is ballet, and how like just everything about ballet is just so not natural to our physiology. Like they talk about how when ballet, like in the 1800s when ballet was around, first position was meant to be like a 45 degrees. So your feet, your heels touch, and your feet are like this. Now the expectation is 180 degrees. Like I can't even do that with my hands, but to be like this. And that is just so physically wrong for the human body. It's so much strain on your knees, on your hips, on your back, because we're just not built to have our feet that way. And just stuff like that, and how like there are certain injuries that are just very common for dancers, and how dancers are supposed to not show that pain. You know, they're supposed to just be graceful and beautiful. So like there's another part that I just underlined that was just like perfectly describes that part of ballet, the physical difficulty, the pain. Because every time you go, and I don't know this from experience, because I chose, when I was 13, I was evaluated, because that's kind of like what they do. They evaluate you before they allow you to go on point. I'm pretty sure most studios are that way, because they want to make sure that your bones are okay and that you are done growing. And so they do some sort of evaluation. And so I had an evaluation done at my studio and was told I was okay to do point, and I decided not to, because I was just scared about totally destroying my feet, honestly. And also at that time, ballet was not a passion of mine. It was like, I was basically doing the bare minimum that I had to do and able to be on my dance studio's competition team, and point was not a requirement, even for my age group, so I just never did it. But from what I understand, it's uncomfortable every time you go on point, when you're in point shoes. And again, it's because you're not supposed to put all of your weight onto basically a lot of it goes onto your big toe, your joint, that big joint there. It's just like you're not supposed to. But every time, even just a basic releve and you go on point, it's bad and it hurts. So anyways, but when you watch professional ballerinas, they do not give that impression at all. And so this is kind of what this little quote kind of talks about. It says, "The mystique of ballet relies on the dancer's suffering, on the dissonance between the serene and immaculate ballerina on the stage and the gruesome, grueling reality of her body underneath her beautiful costume. There's a reason why no ballet movie is complete without a shot of a dancer wincing as she examines her blistered and bloody toes, and why ballet Instagram is full of images of mangled feet posed beside pristine satin pointe shoes. Ballerinas, in exchange for their extraordinary beauty, are expected to endure extraordinary pain." And so it's just really interesting because it's just making me see, I've always known these things about ballet, but it just, I don't know, it's just making me see things differently. The other thing that this book talks about, like a little bit, I'm sure, I don't know if it'll go into more detail, is kind of about just the expense of ballet, how expensive it is to train, especially if you start to take it really seriously. I mean, pointe shoes alone cost on average, I want to say $75 to $100 a pair, and they don't last very long. They break down pretty quickly, and so you are constantly having to buy new pointe shoes. Lessons are expensive. So that part, I feel a little bit because, like I've mentioned, I am a dance mom now these days, and Leia's dance lessons are not crazy expensive, but they definitely have the potential to be down the road if she does decide like she wants to really start taking stuff seriously. I know how expensive it can get, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, it's interesting. And going back to the pointe stuff, it makes me kind of go like, oh my gosh, like down the road, if Leia wants to do pointe, I might have a problem with that because it is just so physically damaging to your body, truly. So yeah, anyways, this is really interesting so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's really making me think and just sort of look at the art form differently. It's just approaching it from a different angle. And like the author, she took ballet lessons as a child. She's not a professional dancer, she's a journalist, but she did a lot of research and she's talked to a lot of dancers, kind of from all areas, you know, all across the country. Specifically the United States is where she focuses in this book, but she's talked to, you know, people that are, you know, in professional ballet companies, people that are, their children are dancers currently, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just really interesting. I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, I just wanted to share those thoughts. So yeah, that's all I have for now. So bye. Hey, so I have a little bit of a check-in to do. I'm still working my way through Turning Point, and I'm really enjoying it. I think that the author has really touched on a lot of different aspects of the ballet world that are problematic, that need to change. Notably, in the recent chapters I've been reading, she's talked a lot about the lack of diversity in ballet, and honestly, the reasons that a lot of people have for not wanting, for example, a black ballerina amidst a bunch of white ballerinas is that they would stand out too much and da-da-da, where it's like, okay, the answer to that is just hire more black ballerinas and you won't have that problem. And she talks a lot too about toxic masculinity, because she talks about how boys and men in the ballet world, when they are in the studio, they are kind of put on a pedestal and they are offered more freedoms than the girls are. Oftentimes there isn't as much of an emphasis on their appearance, and they can kind of goof off and stuff, where the girls just cannot do that. And so they have this sort of, like I said, this sort of like, they're on this pedestal in the dance room, but then when they're out in the real world, they are often bullied, teased, and whatnot for being dancers. So they have to deal with that. And so it was interesting. And she also talked a lot, that did a whole chapter on sexual harassment and sexual assault within ballet companies and things. And yeah, it's just been a really interesting ride. And I only have about 50 pages left, so I'm hoping to finish this one soon. But in the meantime, I completed a whole book since the last time I checked in. I completed Misty Copeland's memoir, Life in Motion, and I really enjoyed it. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. This is just about Misty's life and how she came to be well, at the time that this book was published, she had been promoted to a soloist at American Ballet Theater, and now she is a principal dancer, which she is the first Black woman to ever have that title throughout the history of American Ballet Theater. But at the time that this book was published, she had been promoted to a soloist, and that hadn't happened in like 20 years. So what's great about Misty Copeland and what is so amazing, inspiring, is that she started ballet really late in life. She was 13 when she took her first ballet class at a Boys and Girls Club in her town. And she basically was a prodigy. She got into that ballet class and something just clicked, and she just fell in love with the art form. And it's just about her journey. And it was kind of cool because the book started with her performing Firebird, which is a variation that she did as a soloist. And then she kind of goes back and gives you her life and kind of brings you full circle to that moment again. And it was just really good because, again, I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to dance in general. Especially since I went on to do competitive dance. I started dancing when I was 9. A lot of little girls, they start a lot earlier than that, but I was 9, and within a couple years I was completely smitten with dance and wanted to, you know, try everything and do everything. Except, like I've mentioned, ballet wasn't like top on the list when I was younger. But I started out doing jazz, and then I did tap for a couple years, and then when I started competing, I kind of took, I started taking lyrical classes and ballet, of course, and it kind of went from there. I did hip hop, I did all kinds of stuff. But back to Misty, I just really like identified with her story because I started dancing late also compared to a lot of the girls I danced with. And that she went on to become a principal dancer for one of the top ballet companies in the country is just amazing. And yeah, it basically got me into like watching some of her YouTube videos of her dancing, because obviously when she's talking about this stuff, I'm like, ooh, I want to see. And one of my favorite ones, and I'll link it below, that I watched was actually from when she was only 15. So she had only been dancing for 2 years, and she did a solo variation from Don Quixote. And it was so good. Like, and it wasn't because like her technique wasn't like 100% there, because like I said, she'd only been dancing for 2 years, but just the joy on her face, you could tell that like she just loved what she was doing, and it was just so inspiring, and just her story in general is just super inspiring. So but it was interesting because she's mentioned in Turning Point when they talk about the lack of diversity and how like a lot of times you'll have like one Black woman in a ballet company, and that's basically what Misty Copeland was dealing with when she started out, and how their standard is different. And it was mentioned in this, and I think Misty also mentioned it in her memoir, how like she could make the same mistake that somebody else made. Like, for example, she had like a shoe malfunction, which happens a lot. And so you're unable to, say, complete a turn sequence or something like that, or you slip and fall or something, and everybody like, and it seems like when other dancers do it, it's like, oh, it's okay, mistakes happen. But for some reason, Misty gets a lot of hate. And I saw that too when I was on YouTube watching videos. There's so many videos of people just nitpicking her and calling her lazy, which to me, I'm just like, okay, if she's not only is she now a principal dancer for ABT, but even just being in the corps, none of those dancers can be called lazy. They all work really, really hard. But for some reason, she just gets so much more, I feel like she's more scrutinized, and I don't know if that's because some people just don't like the fact that she's a Black woman and that she has, you know, taken a principal role. I don't know what it is, but it is definitely something I noticed just being on YouTube, that she is scrutinized a lot more than other ballet dancers in the same position or, you know, hierarchy within their companies as she is. But I feel like she just, I don't know, she just seems really likable. She's really cool. She talks about how she toured very briefly with Prince, which kind of brings me back to The Turning Point. The first book I read in this vlog had a Prince element in it too. So it's kind of cool how everything has kind of been connected, the things I've been reading. So yeah, this was really good. I think she's doing great things for ballet by trying to make it more mainstream, especially in trying to do like community outreach and stuff for underprivileged kids who wouldn't otherwise maybe be able to take a ballet class. They have opportunities and stuff like that. So I think she's great. I love Misty Copeland. So yeah, this was good. This was 4 stars. And like I said, I'm going to be finishing this one hopefully like today or tomorrow. And I was really hoping I would get to read a 5th book. I really wanted to read The Ballerinas, but I don't think it's going to happen because I'm running out of time. And I was hoping to listen to it on audio, and the audiobook still from my library says that there's a 2-week wait. So I don't know if that's going to happen. If not, I will keep you guys updated. But yeah, so far, I finished another one and will hopefully be finishing this one soon. Hello friends, I have not been feeling very well the last couple of days. So yeah, I'm not feeling very great right now, but, and not really the way I wanted to close out this vlog, but it is what it is. So, yeah, so I did finish The Turning Point, and overall I think it was a really good look at the problems within the ballet world, because she kind of touched on everything. And in the last chapter, she did do sort of a call to action sort of chapter where she kind of talks about things that can be done. And I did appreciate and like that a lot of the stuff she pointed out was stuff that can be done, you know, starting at like your local small dance studios, because that's where most ballerinas start out. So she kind of talks about how, you know, the studios can, you know, do a better job about being more body positive and about being, well, first of all, being more accessible to their communities, and offering, you know, scholarships and things for kids that can't necessarily afford lessons, just to make it, you know, more accessible to everyone. And then talking about, yeah, being more body positive in the studio, making dancers aware of predatory behaviors from, you know, choreographers and teachers and people higher up and things like that. So it was a lot of things like that that I think are easy to do at the studio level that can be done. The only thing about this was that the subtitle of this book was How a New Generation of Dancers is Saving Ballet from Itself. And though she does talk to a couple of people and touch on that a little bit, like there wasn't a choreographer she interviewed, I can't remember what his name was, but for example, he is, I believe is a white male, and he basically has made this sort of stance that anyone wanting to use his choreography in any sort of showcase or show has to have it alongside either a female choreographer or a choreographer that is of color, or they can't use it. That's kind of his stance. And then she did talk also about a non-binary dancer turned choreographer who started a ballet company called Ballets, and I can't remember what their name is. But I kind of wanted there to be more of that in this book. I thought this was going to be a book about, yes, the problems in ballet, but how people are within the industry right now are trying to fix it, change it, and there just wasn't enough of that. There was a lot of talking about the problems and, you know, the history of these problems, but not a whole lot about what we're doing to fix them. Other than, like I said, that kind of call to action in the last chapter and those mentions of a couple of the people she interviewed for the book doing things, you know, to sort of fight some of those problems. But overall, this was good. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. Anybody interested in ballet and sort of the dark side of ballet, I think would get a lot out of this. There's nothing really surprising in here. I mean, if you are familiar at all with the ballet world, a lot of this stuff you kind of already know about, but it was still good. So for the vlog, I ended up finishing 4 books. If I had to rate them, oh my goodness, like put them in order, like rank them, I would say I would probably do it like this. I would do it like this. These were all really good. Astonish Me was probably my favorite though. But yeah, I did not get to this one. I did not get to the ballerinas. So I'll just save it for another time. When I feel like reading a ballet book again, I'll have this one to go for. So yeah, overall this vlog was fun. I really liked reading about ballet and just dance in general, and it made me feel all the good things. You know, I love dance as an art form, as I've said, and so it was nice to read books about it, even the books that pointed out some of its shortcomings. I think it's also important to read, but it's still an art form that I love, and I'm glad I did this vlog, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, that's it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching.